We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. I hope everybody's having a great time. Today, I think, it's kind of a hump day feeling. It's going to Wednesday, get going. But I'm pretty excited. Before we get started, though, I want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. That's 1-800-330-7461. Again, that is 1-800-330-7461. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is provide a on-the-ground local experience for anybody visiting Central Florida. All these guys know all the attractions. They know all the rules. They are aware of anything that is coming up mask-related or anything with COVID that could happen real quick and pop up overnight. That is travelandcruiseworld.com. That is travelandcruiseworld.com. Tell them I sent you. I want to tell you how to watch the show. You can catch us on Twitter at Positively or at the Stephen Willis. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. And of course, you can catch us on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the bell. Positively Ole Miss is the channel. You'll know not only that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about, and that'll always help you. You'll know, for instance, if like 2 nights ago, the Beast of the East is on the air. It's the Eastern Division thing. You might not be interested in that. You can kind of put that off in your own demand pile, but you can wait for the POMcast and tune in immediately. That's the goal. So that is available there. And you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. Audio-wise, you can catch us on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Pandora. We could name the smaller podcatchers, but we would be here all day. So that's a real quick 2-minute thing. I wanted to get into the show actually today because today we're going to talk about what I think is the biggest 3-game set of Ole Miss's schedule, and that is, believe it or not, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee. There's 2 road games. You're at Tennessee, at Alabama, with a home game in the middle at Arkansas. There's always a little bit of a little lull after you play Bama because of the physical toll. They always joke about, don't let Bama beat you twice, and that is absolutely the case. They've done that plenty of times to plenty of people over the years. But I think that is the important 3-game set. And the reason is that to achieve what we want to achieve, 5-1 in the first 6 is necessity. It's a necessity. You need to win those games. You need to beat Louisville. Get past that one. That's the first test. You need to handle Austin Peay. That's expected. Handle Tulane. That's expected. Alabama on the road will be tough. That's probably going to be the one of the 5-1. But this is at the beginning of the year with a new quarterback, new running back, new wide receivers. There's a whole lot going on in Alabama. Don't forget, Bill O'Brien is calling the offense, and you know what that can lead to. Obviously, also, when people go to the pros and come back to college, they think different. It changes their mindset because I don't know if it's the narrow hash marks. I don't know if it's the pressure to do what everybody else is doing. I don't know what's going on, but the pro game and the college game is basically like 2 different sports, and that could change the way the offense is called and what is set up. So, Bryce Young could be a little bit different than he would have been under Steve Sarkisian. So, he's a runner. He's a slight runner. So it's important that we bottle him up and keep going. You can see the week 1 game to watch around the SEC is up on the side. Check that out. Put a little bit of work into that one. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one. So, the Alabama game is going to be tough. You're coming off that 3-game stretch, and then you go to Alabama. And, if you lose that game, it's a free shot game. I'm not saying there's any consequence to losing that game. But it leads to the next 2 games, the Arkansas, the Tennessee, 2 wins that you need to have, that you have to go 5-1 into the third 3-game set of the season, which will be LSU, Auburn, and Liberty. So it's obviously a little bit of a minefield there. Auburn at Auburn. LSU is always going to be a tough game. And Liberty coming in with Hugh Freeze. That's going to set the season up to be a little bit awkward. So it's important that we're 5-1 after these first 6 games because of that reason. And then you close out with Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, and Mississippi State. 2 of those at home. There's a 3-game homestand basically in November. So we only play 4 true road games this year. The schedule sets up mighty nice. We have all difficult games in Oxford. It's set up for us to enjoy this. But that Alabama game, what's going on? That's a free shot. There's going to be a lot of energy put into that game because I know that Lane Kiffin wants that game. He proved that last year with what's going on. With a little bit better defense and a little bit worse offense, you could see the shrinking of that. And I don't know how well they'll be able to stop us. Of course, you look at just the games going on and what's going on with the Alabama game. Like I said, their offense is going to be worse. Our defense is going to be better. Our offense is going to be extreme. Although we do not have Kenny Yeboah, who was a major piece of that game versus Alabama last year. We don't have Elijah Moore, who was the other major piece. So it's going to be a big game for somebody like Chase Rogers, somebody like Dontario Drummond, the slot receivers like J.J. Henry, John Rice Plumlee, Jacour Pearson, for them to step up. This will be the game where they get to actually lay down a marker that this season is going to be theirs, because they're not going to be able to do that against Louisville, Austin Peay, and Tulane. The first chance they're going to be able to do that is this Alabama game. And last year, confidence should be just oozing from those guys. Even going to Tuscaloosa, whatever you're doing, confidence should be oozing from them. You had all conference players in the defensive backfield like Jake Springer, like a top 50 player like Otis Reese. Keydron Smith moves to free safety. There's a little bit of range there. A.J. Finley's coming back. Got some length on the outside. And we got these young defensive linemen, Isaiah Iton, Jamon Gordon, and Tawan Malone, that are going to try to make a name for themselves. And, Chance Campbell comes over from Maryland to play linebacker. I mean, this defense is going to be better. You have everybody coming back and then 6 new players. So it's going to be better. So you take the Indiana game, that should be the baseline. I've told you why the defense struggled last year. It was no spring practice. It was no fall camp. They didn't have the film where they could make personnel decisions. And because of that, the first game, the second game, the third game, there was a major personnel problem on that side of the ball. As the season moved on, personnel caught up because there was a film. Coaches are notoriously slow decision makers. They want perfection, even though it can't be attainable, and they want several examples of this happening. So film over and over and over again. They obsess about it. They watch it. They want to break it down. They want to go all the way down to individual defenses about what a player can do. Well, that wasn't available last year, going into the Florida game, going into the Kentucky game, going into the Alabama game. That wasn't there. And you had players on the field that really didn't need to be there. They didn't fit. So by the end of the year, personnel started changing. They started moving around. And you have John Haynes, who transferred out. Good luck to him, by the way. But the personnel started catching up to the rest of the defense. And by the end of the year, by the Indiana game, they ran out of gas a little bit, but they found 11 guys they can put on the field. They found 11 guys that they can count on to do what they want to do. And because of that, Indiana, it was pretty much stifled them. Now, with Jake Springer, with Sam Williams, with Otis Reese, I told you this year, in this defense is not about suffocation. This isn't going to be like Kirby Smart calling the Alabama defense, and the game was 10-3 and Alabama won, and that defense was just suffocating. That is not this defense. Do not expect that from this defense. This defense is about explosive plays, about big plays. And knowing that, whenever you take Otis Reese and you take Jake Springer and put them on opposite sides of the line of scrimmage, and then you have Sam Williams coming through, all of a sudden you have several blitz angles, and you can see how we can get sustained pressure on the quarterback. You have a defensive line that has been rebuilt to also grab double teams that won't allow them to protect as easily as they protect. So you're looking at a defense that last year gave up probably 2.5 seconds to a quarterback, 2.5 to 3 seconds because they couldn't get pressure without bringing an overload blitz, to now you might take a half a second off of that. It's 2 seconds. It's a minute. It's a second and a half. And all of a sudden it speeds up the offense. And all team sports, no matter if you're playing soccer, if you're playing baseball, if you're playing football, if you're playing basketball, it's about speeding up your opponent to a level where they become uncomfortable. You want to force mistakes from pressure. And that is why good teams like Alabama, they can overwhelm less talented teams because they can't speed it up to the level that Alabama can. That's why that trouble exists. Now, there's upsets that happen. There's things that happen. But the main thing is speed up the team, no matter what you're playing. So you put Jake Springer and Otis Reese on opposite sides of the line of scrimmage, and Sam Williams come from there, and you can blitz. You can blitz 3, you can blitz 4, you can blitz 5, and there's going to be players near the line of scrimmage that aren't coming. You can zone blitz, and it's going to be hell. It's going to be absolute hell for protections. And that is the idea of this defense. And then you get a couple of ball hawks. You saw in the spring game, Tysheem Johnson, what type of a ball hawk he was. He should have had 2 picks. He had a great pick in the end zone. That's just fantastic. Big length on the outside. I think MJ Daniels had a pick in the spring game as well. You got Keydron Smith, a former cornerback with good ball skills, starting at free safety. Now, I don't know the exact date that it started, but I think they report tomorrow or the day after, sometime in there. And this is about to get started. This is great. You guys can tell how excited I am, how absolutely excited I am to have genuine college football right around the corner. This weekend, we're 3 weeks away from week 0, from the Nebraska-Illinois game. That's just the big game of the weekend. One that I'm kind of paying attention to. But, yeah, that's the week 0 game. I think UCLA plays Hawaii also that day. So there's going to be stuff like 5 or 6 games during the day. But I said all that to say this. That Alabama game is going to be tricky. It's going to be a free shot. And we're not going to be favored to win that game. But if you look at last year and you look at what we're doing this year and you look what Alabama has and where they are in the season, we're going to have a better shot. Alabama should be unbelievably glad that this game's in Tuscaloosa. If this was in Oxford, I'd be thinking about, Ole Miss can get these guys. But it's in Tuscaloosa. Now, after that game, after all of the emotion of that game, we're going to talk about the other 2. But first, we're going to take a short break. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And see. Reset that real quick. And after the break, when we come back, we will talk about the Arkansas game and the Tennessee game. And we'll talk a little bit about Orlando Umana. I'm probably butchering his last name. I apologize for that. But maybe what they're going to do with him and how they're going to plan on using him and how that may open up the guard position in the future for the Ole Miss offense. So, let's see. Yeah, so stick around. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about all that. So, hotty toddy. All right, welcome back to the show. I am Stephen Willis. We're talking about what I think is the biggest set of games that Ole Miss has to deal with in the near future and what's going on. That would be the Alabama, the Arkansas, and the Tennessee game. And we spent most of the first segment talking about that Alabama game and why this year is going to be different and what that means and how it sets up. But the regardless in that game is if you look at the schedule until you see otherwise, that game is going to be an L. So that is going to make the next two games extremely important. And those two games are at Arkansas and at Tennessee. Now, Arkansas is important because this will be a huge game for Matt Corral. This will be a test for his maturity. This will be a test for his emotional. He's an emotional kid. And after 6 interceptions, and you heard him in SEC media games talking about how this year is going to be different, this game is going to mean a lot to him. So, if we just play the game, we have better players than they do. We have really, we have a better version of the same scheme offensively. They might be okay defensively, but we're going to be improved defensively. And by the way, Arkansas going to start KJ Jefferson from North Panola. So it's something to keep an eye on, the emotional state of Matt Corral for that game. After 6 interceptions last year, he will want to redeem himself. And by redeeming himself, he could overdo it and get himself in trouble. I'm not saying he's going to, but that is a possibility for this game. This game being in Oxford, it helps us out considerably. The drop 8 Barry Odom crazy physical defense has given us trouble over the years. It did last year. It did when he was at Missouri, the year before that. And it did when he was at Memphis in 2015. Y'all remember with Chad Kelly and those guys. So it's going to be important that the head is screwed on straight and the game plan is ready to be executed for Matt Corral. Not emotional, super mature performance, dump the ball down, do what's necessary. If he does all that, Ole Miss should win the game. Ole Miss should be favored in that game by 7 or 8 points. But there is a landmine coming after Bama with the Matt Corral emotional state after last year. There could be some worrying that could come on this game. But if Ole Miss gets past this, they get to go to Tennessee. This is 2 of their true road games. After this, they have 2 left. 4 home games, 2 road games. One of those games is at Mississippi State. So you leave the state of Mississippi 1 time. The other one's at Auburn, by the way. So the Tennessee game, Tennessee has a problem defensively. We don't know what they're going to look like, but they have a personnel issue defensively. A bunch of guys that went to school there for Jeremy Pruitt just bailed on everything that was going on and moved on with their life. Transferred Henry To'oTo'o, went to Alabama. That's something to keep an eye on as well. Good player. Tennessee's leading linebacker returning has like 22 tackles. It's going to be a struggle defensively, and I think offensively they're going to look real similar to the way Ole Miss did last year. And you could see some games where the score is 56-42. It's just outlandish. They can't stop anybody, but they really can't be stopped. And there's going to be games where a hiccup can happen because of that. Because offensively, with Hayden Hooker from Virginia Tech, with Joe Milton from Michigan, and Harrison Bailey coming back, they have a QB room that is very adequate for what they want to do. And I would expect Josh Heupel and his offensive coordinator to do stuff that's a little bit outside the box this year because they're so understaffed on defense. So this is a game that Ole Miss should win. I mean, if you look at it, I look at the schedule, it's like that's a W. But it's a game where a hiccup could happen. It's a game that could come up and get you if your offense isn't performing that day. If your defense has a bad day, you could look up and it's 45-42 midway through the fourth quarter. So just be cognizant of that going on. But this 3-game set is the most important for Ole Miss because Ole Miss, for us to do what we want to do, has to be 5-1 at the end of 6. If they're 4-2, still a plenty great season can happen and we can still have a lot of fun. But the momentum of this wave going forward, it kind of needs 5-1. Because after that, LSU can be beat, Auburn can be beat, A&M, who knows? They have a new quarterback. Everybody's talking about how good they are. But as we learned with Jeremy Johnson a few years back, you can't necessarily believe hype from quarterbacks. Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Liberty. You have a chance at a really special season if you get to 5-1. Special season unlike really anything we've seen before. Even 14-15. And speaking of which, that Liberty game is slap dab in the middle of the second half of that schedule. So, I do want to talk about the transfers that are coming in. We haven't really hit them recently. Jaden Dix, who is a rush-in from Canada coming into Oxford. I haven't looked at film on Jaden. I'm looking at doing a transfer watch or a portal watch, portal spotlight, whatever you want to call it, in the next few days, few weeks. We're in the process of redesigning everything, getting our ad perspective ready to go, and all of that is just kind of put the secondary videos back on the back burner. We do have a video up on transfer spotlight or portal watch, I forget what we call it, on Orlando Umana. He looks to be the center, if he can do it. Him snapping the ball, that's going to allow Ben Brown to move to one of the guard positions and really help the offensive line because Jeremy James can then move to right tackle. And all of a sudden you have a nice fluid unit. And obviously with those guys, they're asked to do quite a lot. They're asked to do a bunch because of the tempo we play with. And knowing that and knowing that there's not many substitutions, because if you substitute, the other team gets to substitute, and that's kind of against what you want to do. You basically want a wind sprint to where you can wear them down. And knowing that, the first 5 needs to be really solidified. The second 5 is what we need to build. Eventually, you could see a situation to where they just wholesale change out units. Whenever they do substitutions, they do them by series. If you have 7 or 8 linemen that are coming in, so you might take a series off, but they don't want to substitute in the middle of a drive. And take that as a positive, take that as a negative, take it as whatever. It's just the reality of the situation at hand. But the offensive line looks to be a strength. Nick Broker and Ben Brown both got, I think, third team All SEC nods. Jeremy James moving out to right tackle. He's going to do a fantastic job there. Then you have young guys that are coming up. And this will be the first season with the new offensive line coach, and that's something to look at as well. But the tempo and what we do, remember, you always he likes hiring Baylor coaches to put in the system. That's why they do this. They're not necessary for them to continue because they didn't continue at FAU, but to put it in for the install. Once you have upperclassmen that can train underclassmen, the coaches become obsolete. You can go out and get your recruiters or some kind of a star. Like whenever they were at FAU, Charlie Weiss Jr. was not a tempo guy, not a Baylor guy, but they were running the same style offense because this has become a Lane Kiffin offense. This is year 5. This is no longer really a Baylor offense. This is a Lane Kiffin offense. It's going to be elements of Baylor, what they did, which you stretch them out wide, do all the things you need to do, play with massive tempo. Every play is kind of an option route, run past option. You know, there's a pass tag on every run play. There's a run tag on every pass play. And it just allows you to do things spectacular. But you have those 10% of plays that are Lane Kiffin specials that are unlike anything else. It's the Norm Chow. It's the USC part of this offense. It's in the construct of what they're doing, but a certain play may be called to go against a certain coverage. When they get it, they're going to hit it and they're going to strike. You saw it against South Carolina. You saw it several times last year of a matchup that they really liked. So that is going to be fun. But I think this is going to be the most important 3-game stretch for Ole Miss this season. If they get to 5-1, there's a chance, it could get fun. It could get fun to hurry. And if they beat Alabama, there might not be 2 losses left on that schedule. But this is all based on the defense improving. This is all based on the offense continuing. No catastrophic injuries. And, I mean, it's there. People are worried. People are nervous of what's going on because of the history of Ole Miss. But I think it's okay to get excited. Just like you got excited over the number 1 ranking in baseball whenever you got that. It doesn't happen very often. Enjoy it. Don't wait for something bad to happen so it can be taken away. No, enjoy it. Live in the moment. And as long as we do that, living in the moment from week to week, and don't look ahead and don't have a catastrophic game, you could have a special season this season. And Kincaid Dent and Luke Altmaier will be getting some mop-up work this year that they didn't get. Kincaid was not afforded last year because of the 10-game SEC schedule. But due to the 4-game redshirt rule, you can still redshirt and play in 4 games. You can get Luke Altmaier 4 games and redshirt him. The other games, you can go to Kincaid Dent if you need him. So it's going to be very interesting. You can see my top 5 breakout newcomers. I'm very excited. I'm very high on Tysheem Johnson. Very much a Honey Badger type player. He still has to develop there, but he has those traits. But we are going to get out of here and we are going to say goodbye and thank you very much for joining us today. Tomorrow, we will do it all over again. Tonight, SEC After Dark with me and Corey Burton. Tune in for that, right where you receive these podcasts and videocasts and things like that. But until then, I want to say, hotty toddy.